Ladies and gentlemen, hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Sherm in the Booth. My name is Sherm. You guys are some true Chicagoans for coming out in January. It's snowing outside, it's freezing, and you're at the fucking club at 1 a.m.
Boys with the bass, yeah, boys, bass.
Who am I talking to right now? You're famous.
Free food, free drinks, music, girls. Let's go.
Do you like it? Cool. If you don't, goodbye.
I'm missing the most important part.
Boys with the bass, yeah.
We should throw like a crazy bar mitzvah party.
This is crazy. Semi-stems, I finished it.
Hey, what's up, guys? How's everyone doing?
Just wait, you know it kicks in like 3 to 5 seconds afterward.
Yo, what is good, everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of Sherm in the Booth. As always, I am, of course, your host, Sherm, and it is finally fall here in the Midwest, and we are feeling so good to be back in sweater weather, everyone. But you know what? That's enough about the weather. I don't do small talk here on this podcast. We have a very special guest today, and I'm so grateful that she was able to make the time to come during her insanely busy schedule. Ladies and gentlemen, Dani Deahl is back on Sherm in the Booth, and it is an absolute honor to have her on again. Dani is doing some incredible things right now in dance music, but for this episode, we mostly focus on Chicago Music Nexus and her involvement in the event. Dani is one of the panelists on the Adapt or Die portion with Lady D and Terry Hunter talking about cultivating resilience as an artist. And I wanted to get Dani's take on a few things leading up to the conference to give everybody a little bit more information on what they can expect. As a multifaceted individual in dance music, her unique perspective and experience deserves all the respect in the world. This was a really fun conversation about the state of the industry, evolving an artist brand, and why you should care about something like Chicago Music Nexus. Dani, I appreciate you so much, and it is always a blast chopping it up with you. So let's get into it right now so you guys can hear it for yourselves. This is episode 239 with Dani Deahl. I assume I can't make you drink Malort right now because you got shit to do.
It might be a bad idea to drink Malort before therapy.
Or is that when you really should drink Malort, you know? That could be a new t-shirt from them.
And Malort is therapy.
Malort is therapy. Malort. Cheaper than therapy.
There we go.
They actually gave me this. I DJ'd their 90th birthday party. Check out the back. It's so cool. That's the CEO, Tremaine.
Oh.
He wrote on there.
Wait, Malort's a plant?
It's from, so what's in there is called wormwood.
Yeah.
And that's what they distill the alcohol in to give it a really, really bitter taste. So
That's
like
so cool.
the root in there, like they gave everybody like one of those. And I actually ate wormwood with him, the CEO, when I interviewed him last year. It is the most bitter thing you've ever tasted in your entire life. But I fully understood Malort.
All of the times you've had Malort, and that was what made you understand it.
Really, Dani. For anybody out there, you're going to have to try wormwood. But this was like probably the best moment of my Chicago like experience. Like DJing the birthday party, celebrating 90 years with like JP Graziano's was there. Like they had all these local Chicago influencers, Chicago bakeries, like all these different types of people that were there. And I'm just like DJing in my Malort onesie. And
Accurate.
it was a rager. It was an absolute rager. But it just is like, does it get more Chicago than Malort?
No, it doesn't. It's a very Midwestern sentiment in general. It's
Yeah.
an honest drink,
It is an honest drink.
right?
That's exactly what it is. You remember your first shot of Malort?
No, but that's probably because my brain etch-a-sketched it.
Truly. All right, let's get over that. I had my first shot like somewhere in Lincoln Park when I first moved to Chicago. It was at a place I can't even remember, but I'll divvy past it sometimes, and like my heart will like skip a beat. I'm like, oh God, yeah. I remember
Excitement and PTSD at the
Well,
same time.
people hype it up so much, Dani. They're like, it's the worst thing you're ever gonna taste, and then you taste it, and you're like, it's not like that bad.
And then 5 seconds goes by.
Yeah, then the Malort face. You know, you may not know this, but when we did the Chicago Handshake the last time you were on Sherm in the Booth, when we did it at the Moxie Hotel, we ripped Chicago Handshake because I was talking shit, and then my wife went to go get me one and basically said, suck it up. I sampled the audio from you, and it's in the intro of the podcast.
Really?
Yes, you will hear it on this episode. And of course, we sampled the audio from that interview and made the song called Chicago Handshake.
Of course.
That was released on Hood Politics, and it is still like one of people's favorite songs by
Really?
me and A Boy with a Bag. Yeah, so
Oh.
you're very ingrained in my brand, Dani,
Oh my
in many
gosh.
different ways.
I'm honored.
I'm honored to have you here, and I want to say thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. There's so many things that we could talk about, but we don't have a lot of time, so we'll get to the hits.
Let's do it.
How about that?
Yeah. Play the hits.
Play the hits. We're here to talk about Chicago Music Nexus, something that I'm very, very excited about, that I've been planning for a long time, and we're honored, Olivia and I, to have you on one of the panels about Adapt or Die. You're going to be on the panel with Terry Hunter and Lady D, and it's about cultivating resilience. And the really interesting part about your guys' panel is you guys are representing like what I call the OG generation, like true OG Chicago people that have like tried and tested so many different just trends and time periods, right? And you guys are still here, more relevant than ever, in my opinion, and killing it. So like, in your opinion though, thinking back to all the different evolutions of your own brand, why do you think it is important for an artist to consider when it's time to evolve or take that next step?
Well, I think that's an individual choice. Some people are perfectly comfortable and it works for them to do the same thing or something similar over and over again for an extended period of time. Other people, it's not the right fit for them. And I think that choice really comes down to tapping into, what does authenticity mean to you?
Yeah.
And that is something that I think is really contentious right now, that a lot of people are very protective of right now. And a lot of people are doing soul searching, especially artists, to figure out, what does it mean to be me?
Yeah.
And is what I'm doing the product of who I really am? Or am I making things in response to algorithms and to the pressure? Seriously.
Yeah.
In response to trends, in response to what people expect to hear and see from me. And because we have people consuming all the time and attention economy is increasingly shorter and shorter and shorter, there's a lot of artists that I think find themselves right now in this in-between space where they're really having to tussle with, what is the intent behind what I am creating? So in terms of, when is it the right time for you? No one can answer that except you. But that really requires the clarity of mind in order for you to be honest with yourself.
Yeah. So true. And you said a lot of things right there about what's changed, right? Like the attention economy, things like that, right? It's so transactional. Do you see the industry getting to a point where it almost has to reset? Like, where do you think the near future is going to be like for artists?
I think there is going to be more opportunity than ever before. I don't think that fractured attention means no attention. I think the fact that we have a multitude of platforms can create spaces for people to thrive with less concentrated audiences. So I think there's, how do I say this? There might be less opportunity to create more Taylor Swifts in the future. But there could be more opportunity to create the middle-class musician. And I think that old adage of 1,000 true fans is maybe true today for the first time. If you're able to build up a concentrated, dedicated audience that is willing to pay the ticket to your show, buy the piece of merch, pay a couple extra dollars to unlock something special, then you don't need 100 million people following you.
No, you don't. That's why I think it's so important for artists, really at any stage in their career, to always define like, what does success look like to them, right?
Correct.
Like, because it doesn't always have to be this 100 million followers, fancy lifestyle, all that stuff, right? Because you and I talk all the time about like, these metrics that seem like they're important, the followers, the Spotify monthly listeners, the playlists and stuff. But so much of that is passive or bots, right? Like, who are your real fans? Because you don't want to be the person that has all these numbers and people take chances on you and then nobody comes to your shows.
Right. Yeah. To that point, I was just in Germany at a conference called Reeperbahn. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And I went to a panel that who was on it? Andrew Beatty, who runs BeatDap. It's a platform
Yeah, I've heard of that.
identifies streaming fraud.
Hmm.
And he said that a couple of his clients who are large DSPs take a guess the percentage of fake streams.
Oh my God. I like am scared to guess that it's like 60%.
Okay. I was maybe thinking you were going to go lower than that. But
What?
it was about 40%. And
Okay, yeah, that's still a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
40%.
40%.
Oh my gosh.
It's wild. So when we're thinking about these numbers that we're chasing, oftentimes we're chasing shadows,
Yeah, we are.
right? We're not chasing real people. Real people are coming to shows. We're chasing numbers that are hopefully going to translate into people coming to shows.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we need to really change our focus into it. Is it more important that the song gets 1 million streams, or is it more important that 100 people show up?
Yeah. Gosh. And it is that simple, actually. I feel like we all try and overcomplicate what it means to be successful, but that's where real fulfillment has come for me. I've spoke about this on the podcast so many times where I wasted a lot of time trying to get the attention of the wrong people, whether it was other DJs or labels or promoters or agents or managers or whoever it was. And I should have been thinking about who's actually coming to my show, right? Like, it is a special thing for anybody to go out of their way to come to a nightclub of all places, early or late, whatever it is, and support you and be there. And I think that's really special. So, like, when I try and give advice to artists that are like, they're playing on these cool shows, they think things are going really well, and maybe they are, you got to take a second to, one, smell the roses, but also, two, like, pay attention to who's there, why are they there, learn from them, ask them, talk to them.
Yes.
I've always tried to be the accessible artist because I've met so many artists that, like, don't show love or attention to their fans. And it can be disheartening, you know?
For sure. I also recognize that it is a lot of energy expenditure.
Absolutely. It's easier for me to say than like John Summit or somebody like that. Like, I totally get it. But I try and always make time because I think they actually have the keys to your success.
True. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Like, as a house music artist, in the past 5 years, 10 years or whatever, in Chicago, LA, North America, wherever it is, if you get a release on some of these bigger labels, that would automatically mean tour opportunities. It would mean support from other DJs, industry clout, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And today, one, it's harder to get on labels than it ever has been before.
Yes.
It's harder to play shows because there's so much talent because there's no barrier to entry.
And it's not like the amount of venues has increased exponentially.
Yeah, exactly. There's more. It's one of the craziest supply and demands that we've ever seen, and I do think that's why you're right. Like, we're at this point where the bubbles just gotta pop. There's so much hype around the biggest artists, and venues need those artists, and they also need those people though too that are coming to the shows.
Right. And also, we exist in a really strange space as DJs.
Yeah.
Most other forms of music, you don't need an audience in order to make the show happen.
Or like feel like it was successful.
Or feel like it was successful. That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
An average singer-songwriter or somebody who produces hip-hop, if it results down the line in shows with an audience, great, if that's what they desire.
Yeah.
But for DJs, if we don't have an audience, then
gosh, I've never thought about that, Dani. Like, you know about it. Like, you know, there are obviously amazing producers out there that like also just love making dance music. Like Jax Jones, for example, right? Like, that guy's got more hits than probably 99% of DJs when it really comes down to it.
Yeah.
Credited or uncredited. And he just doesn't tour that much. And I've seen interviews with him. He's like, you know, I really like performing, but like it's not my main focus. I really enjoy just making music in the studio. But in the world we're in, a lot of people become DJs before they become producers, and they become producers because they do want to be in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not saying you have to be a producer first, because I was a DJ first. You were a DJ first, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was. Yeah.
And I think there's an art within the art there as well. But
For sure.
I don't know. It's hard because when you're a young up and coming producer, you feel like you know all the keys to success. All right, I gotta be a good DJ. I gotta find the best music. I gotta be a good producer. I gotta work hard on that. And now it's like
a long list to start.
It's a
with.
long list. I need to be a video editor, a content creator. I need to be really good in Photoshop.
Yeah.
And I think
Gotta
it's
be on every single social media platform.
yeah. The social media thing is, it's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. And that's the one thing, too, I want artists to know is like, you don't have to be really good at every social media app. I do think you have to be on everyone, posting content, getting in front of people, because that's the beauty of the internet that gives us that ability. But different people live on different social media apps, right? There are people who prefer Twitter. There are people who prefer Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I mean, we could do a whole episode on YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's like, where do you feel like your content will do the best?
For sure. And there are people that achieve success, fame, however you want to define it, audience, on any number of platforms. And you find that the people that do find success on those platforms have concentrated their efforts.
Yes.
So definitely, I think, even though there is this pressure to be everywhere all the time, all at once, it's better to opt into a few things where you know you can devote most of your time and attention rather than be on every single platform, but have the content be dull, not appropriate for the space, or infrequently updated.
Yeah. And don't just like post to post too, right? Like, I think one thing I try and replicate with things I learned about music in terms of making music, like you want to have a stack of unreleased music in case the opportunity comes when someone really likes your music. You want to say, give me a month, I'll get you some new music, right? Think about stacking your content like that, because that's how you can actually create breaks for yourself. I've realized, right? Like, I'll just pound out a lot of podcasts and music and whatever it is in like a few weeks time, and it can be a lot. But then I know that I've set myself up to release a bunch, and there's no greater feeling to me than when I'm happy with the content that I put out and it's well received. And I feel like unless you do take the time to think about what you're making and you don't rush it, or you do rush it, it's not going to do well, and you're going to be even more mad at yourself. You're like, why isn't this doing well?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to tell that you didn't want to do it, probably.
Right. Or you haven't spent the time to think about what your voice is online.
Yeah, that's a
right?
good point.
A lot of people that do social media because they feel like they must haven't really thought about who is the intended audience and how are you talking to them.
So true.
How are you developing that relationship? What's the language you're using? Are you talking to them in the same way that you talk to people at your shows?
That was deep. I'm going to digest that for a moment. That was good.
Well, because I think a lot of us as artists are maybe comfortable with certain forms of communication, not as comfortable with writing.
Yeah.
And so the way that we write, oftentimes we overthink it. And it's certainly not how we would engage with conversation with somebody, or it's not how we would dialogue with a fan at a show. And all of a sudden, when we're looking at a blank caption, then we're like, we get all Shakespearean.
Yes, what do you think I would say?
Right.
Yeah, that's so true. There are lots of ways to express yourself, that's for sure. So one thing I want to mention is it's been 40 years of house music, I think now.
Yes, 40 years since the first commercial release.
And you're on obviously a panel with two Chicago legends, Lady D and Terry Hunter, right? Like real.
It's unbelievable for me to even think about, because when I was coming up in Chicago, Lady D was one of the people I looked up to.
Yeah, that's amazing. How was that back-to-back set at Spy Bar, by the way?
It's the fourth time we've done it.
That's sick.
We've done it at Number 9, Prism. I forget the other venue, but yeah, 4 years ago, I worked up the courage to ask if she would want to do it.
I can't believe you worked up the courage. Yeah, like
Well,
you're
of
Dani
course.
Deahl to me, you know, like
Oh, she's Lady D.
yeah, exactly.
What?
Yeah.
And so we joke it's D to D. every
D
year.
to D. That's awesome.
But I wanted the opportunity to play with the person that I looked up to and still look up to as an icon in my own musical life. And it wound up going so supremely well that it became an understanding that it was something that we would do every single year for my birthday.
Oh my gosh.
And Darlene has told me that I'm one of the few people that she will do this with, so that makes me feel really special. And we do no preparation. We don't talk to each other beforehand. We don't share tracks. We don't talk strategy.
Yeah.
We don't even make an agreement on how many tracks each of us will do before we switch off.
Wow. Feel it.
It is literally improvisational in the vibe, in the pocket.
That's so sick. That's so sick. Because you know a lot of people do, if they don't do back-to-backs and like they're asked to go back-to-back, like there's a lot of talking that goes on before it. What are you going to play? What's the vibe?
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Just get in there and just get it on. Like literally just start.
Yeah.
Let it come
I
to
think
you.
like a good B2B to me
Mhm.
should not be planned out. I
Agreed.
think it's about the intangible, the way that you connect with somebody or you
Mhm.
don't. Sometimes I've done some
Sure.
B2Bs where
Yeah.
I'm just not on the same wavelength as the other person. But
Yeah.
when it hits.
Isn't that the special thing about dance music though? Sometimes in the art of DJing is
Mhm.
like you become one. Like
Yeah.
it's a wild feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. How cool for you though, like
Yeah.
to look up to her and now be in this position where she loves going back to back with you. Do you feel like you almost get like that energy from her, like that just old school house energy?
Yeah. And what's really interesting is when we play together, she and I will intentionally push each other.
Okay.
She'll choose tracks that she knows I've never heard and might be challenging for me. And I'll do the same and pick songs that I know she would never play. and
Yeah.
would be out of her wheelhouse, but would still fit within the context of the set.
Oh, that's so sick.
Yeah.
You make sure each other goes outside of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's even beyond, I think, a traditional B2B where people might play into the strengths of the other person.
Yeah.
Because that feels really supportive.
Yeah.
But we find that we get the best out of each other when we challenge the other person musically.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we're going to see how you guys go back to back on a panel. Have you guys done that before?
Yeah, we have.
Many times.
We have. She's wonderful. I really enjoy the fact that I've gotten to become close friends with her, that we play together, that she's also now on the board with me as
Yep.
the member of the Chicago chapter for the Recording Academy.
Terry is as well, right?
Terry is as well. Yeah, when I started my board service for the Chicago chapter several years ago, I was the only person representing dance music at the time.
Oh.
Now, historically, we had dance people on the board, Maurice Joshua, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like I was the first.
I remember Maurice.
Mhm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I was far from the first, but at that time, I was the only one on the board. And I thought, this is ridiculous because look at where we are. And not only does the chapter represent Chicago, but we're really the Midwest chapter. We represent Detroit,
Right.
Minneapolis, all of these cities that have rich musical legacies that tie back to dance music. And so I thought this is going to be my mission to get more dance people in the Midwest
Yeah.
to understand that they can be a part of the agency of change
Mm-hmm.
within the Recording Academy and be a part of it and not look at the Academy as a stodgy institution.
Yeah.
So yeah, fast forward a few years and Golf Clap was on the board and
Mhm.
Carson Sollers and Darlene, Lady D, and Terry Hunter. And at a certain point I said, okay, maybe this is too much. We're going to make space for other genres.
There's a lot of solid house DJs right
Yeah.
there, though. That's amazing. And Olivia actually talked to Terry at ARC, and he basically said he was like, I was against the Grammys for a
Mhm.
long period of time. But
Yeah.
now he feels like it's really important to be part of the conversation.
Completely.
Yeah.
I think, and I understand, I have the utmost empathy for how most of dance music views the Academy, because when you see the ballot and there's only 5 names on it,
Mhm.
it's hard for a lot of underground acts to see where there's space.
Yep.
So I fully have sympathy for that, and I got a real taste of that when I was first on the board, and I convinced somebody from the academy to come up to Detroit with me to Movement, and I said, we're going to have this big dinner, and I'm going to invite all these techno artists, and we're going to talk about how great the academy is.
Yes.
And we're going to convert them all. And they wanted nothing to do with us. They were like, thanks for the free dinner, but bye.
Oh, wow. That didn't go as well as you hoped.
It did not. It did not. So then I had to...
House of Techno, there's the difference right there.
Well,
maybe.
yeah, but I also then had to take a step back and think, why is there this perception?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I think slowly the Academy has been doing a really good job of changing that perception, and that change really only comes, and I think Terry understands this now because he's part of it, but it really only comes if you're actively a part of the organization, because we're a peer voted award system.
Yeah.
And so if you want to change the demographics of who's voting on who gets an award, then join. Be a voting member.
Yep.
Change the demographics.
Yeah. That's such a good point, Dani. And that honestly leans into like one of the core missions of Chicago Music Nexus. I was talking about this last night with some of the other panelists. It's not about how much you can do for your career, but how much can you contribute to like the community at large, because when you do something for yourself, right, it's just like the oxygen mask rule. You have to take care of yourself before you can help others. And I think a lot of people, like I said earlier, are worrying about others. So, I mean, last question, why do you think artists and music industry professionals should care about something like Chicago Music Nexus?
Oh my gosh. Well, to exactly your point, I think we're all stronger together. We started off this conversation listing out the litany of things that an individual artist has to do in order to barely exist.
Yeah.
For people to even understand that you are a blip on the radar, right? It's a monumental task, and sharing not just resources, like for example, I share a studio with some other Chicago artists like Alex Kisloff.
RV.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
So there's very obvious things like sharing resources, but then there's also the intangible things like sharing joy and excitement, right? Being able to pump each other up and to make people feel like they're not alone in this, and to have that support system. It means more to so many people than you would realize, because doing all of it alone can be a complete grind. And having other people around you that understand what it's like and are there to be a space for you to vent or to share in happiness makes all of the difference.
So true. And there aren't enough spaces outside of the club or the festival where these conversations happen. Without Sherman the Booth, I would not have made all these connections and gotten this far in my career, because I hear the stories of success and, more importantly, the ones of failure. Yeah. And I share those. And that's why Olivia and I wanted to do this, because it's filling a void that I had to sort of figure out myself. And I don't think things have changed that much.
Yeah, to your point, sure, you can make connections at nightclubs. But I think those conversations only go so far. Yeah. Right? I'm not discounting it whatsoever. It is incredibly valuable to network at venues and to be out and about, and of course you run into people you would never even imagine in green rooms, right? When you just stay that extra hour.
That's true.
But is that the space and the opportunity for you to really connect with somebody?
No, in my opinion. You can show some face, as they say, but to really make those connections that make you want to stay in the music industry, I think above all, is the camaraderie that you build with others.
Camaraderie, that's a good word for it. Yeah.
That's right. And if you made it to the end of the episode and we haven't convinced you yet, use promo code. How about this? Use promo code I'm a DJ for $30 off ChicagoMusicNexus.com. I will also be drinking Malort with everybody, doing God's will here. And Dani, thank you so much for coming on. It's been great. And we're so excited to have you be a part of Chicago Music Nexus.
I'm so excited, and I'm so proud of you for putting this event together.
Thank you. It's been a lot of work, but it's going to be worth it. This one's for you, Chicago. Hey, what's up? And thanks for watching that video. You looking for more content now? I got your back. Go to my YouTube channel right now, hit that subscribe button, and make sure you turn on all notifications so you never miss any upcoming exclusive artist interviews, Sherman the Booth clips, new music, live sets, and more. This is your one-stop shop for everything electronic music. Cheers.